أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا حبيبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين أبي القاسم محمد
اللهم صل على
الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين سيما بقية الله الأعظم بقية الله خير لكم إن كنتم مؤمنين ولا الدائم على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد فقد قال الله تعالى في محكم كتابه المجيد بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن كنتم تحبون الله فاتبعوني يحببكم الله صدق الله العلي. Perhaps the last majlis of the month of Safar, with our condolences to the Imam of our time upon the Shahadat of the Prophet and the second Imam, Imam Hassan, and to all of you brothers and sisters. The month of Majalis of Baba Abdullah Hussain alayhi salam requires a very deep reflection upon the Amal itself. The Amal that is required by us is for what? The Amal required by us is for In kuntum tuhibbuna Allah fattabi'uni. That is the purpose of the Amal. That if someone wants to love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they should follow the Prophet. They should follow the Sunnah of the Prophet, which includes the mawaddat of the Ahlulbayt, which also manifests this very mawaddat in the form of azadari, in the form of majalis, in the form of jashan, so on and so forth. The other thing to reflect in regards to the majalis of Baba Abdullah Hussain alayhi salam is this, that the amal, the actions, are nothing but vehicle through which a man reaches God. It is through the amal we reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As Allah says in the Quran, that kalimat tayyib, a good speech, and amal salih yarfu, elevates. Good speech and the amal salih elevates. So therefore an action which has salih, which is righteous, it elevates. So our actions are nothing but a vehicle. And at the same time, as the amal is a vehicle to reach that perfection, to elevate, that level of perfection is neither muzakkar nor muannas, meaning that it is not male or female, it doesn't have any gender. So therefore, darajah kamal, a level of perfection, is not male, not female. That level could be reached by you and also could be reached by the sisters. It's the same level that one could reach, because it's not muzakkar or muannas. Just as good is not male, not female. It's one thing. Such as the same way as perfection. So therefore the amal itself, which is a medium to reach that perfection, and that perfection is neither male or female, on the same token the action itself, which is a vehicle, is neither male or female. It is not an action that, okay, this is the action should be performed by a man, or this is an action only should be performed by a woman. So the actions have no gender, the darajah kamal have no gender. Now, as the actions have no gender, but it has a reflection of the person who acted it, and for what. What was the purpose of it and who acted it. For example, as the verse we recite, In kuntum tuhibbuna fattabi'uni, the sunnah of the Prophet, the actions of the Prophet. Prophet was the one who acted this action, and through this action we reach qurb ilahi. For example, the hadith of qurbun nawafil, a person who performs the perogatory, the recommended prayers, he will reach to a point that Allah will become his hand, Allah will become his eyes, ears, so on and so forth. So Prophet acted, a person who is insan kamil, a person who is waqana qab qawsayn aw adna, who reached that maqam, that level, asra bi abdi ilayhi. So Prophet acted, and the actions are the sunnah. Now, at the same time, we know there are certain sunnahs which is not really acted by Prophet as such, but advised by the Prophet, but acted by someone who wasn't a Prophet, such as Bibi Fatima Al-Zahra salamun alayha. So now the actor is a female, and the action which is performed, as it has no mudhakkar and muannas, that is a female in a way as such. For example, the tasbih Fatima sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So therefore, as the action doesn't have a male and female, and it makes us reach to a maqam which is perfection, doesn't have any gender, so the azadari of Abdullah Hussain alayhi salam is nothing but the action of Zainab sallallahu alaiha. So therefore, the way when we act, recite tasbih Fatima, we are becoming Fatima. The way on the day of Ashura, when every one of the shaheed became Imam Hussain alayhi salam, not just one Hussain. There were 72 shaheed on the day of Ashura who were all Hussain, not just one Hussain, because they were in love of Hussain. In kuntum tuhibbuna Allah fattabi'uni yuhibbukumullah, love. So they all followed Hussain, they all followed the Prophet, they all became in love with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they all become one with Imam Hussain alayhi salam. So on the same token, when we recite the tasbih Fatima, we really going in that direction of becoming Fatima, because that Darajah Kamal is no male and female. And the action that is performed is not particularly as a female action, but it's an action which have no gender. So on the same token, the Azadari of Abdullah Hussain alayhi salam is an action performed by Hazrat Zainab. And when we all perform the Azadari, we are becoming Zainab Salamullah alayha, which once again is a personality which is anti-alimatu bila muallima, who have reached to a level which have no male and female, that perfection. That is why she is, just like how a prophet wasn't taught by anybody, she hasn't been taught by anybody as such, according to the fourth Imam. She has reached to that level of maqam, to the extent we find the scholars even recommend to recite Ziyarat Jami' Kabira, which is particularly for the Imam Masoom, to be recited for her as well. So therefore, all of those maqamat in regards to the imamat that comes about, that haq comes from you, haq returns back to you, could be recited for her, because she has reached that level of perfection. So when we are performing the Azadari of Abdullah Hussain alayhi salam, it's an action just as the tasbih Fatima, which is performed by her, and this action performed by the daughter of Fatima sallallahu alaiha. So obviously, as we recite 34 Allahu Akbar, not 35. As we recite 33 Alhamdulillah, not 36. As we recite 33 Subhanallah, not 4 or 5. In the same way, in order for the Amal Salih to reach that level of perfection, the Azadari performed must be like the Azadari of Sayyidah Zainab sallallahu alaiha. It should have that element in the Azadari itself. Obviously, the Azadari doesn't mean that it has to be in Arabic. You know, Azadari itself has the language of Nur, it has the language of light, because it's an Amal Salih that makes us reach that perfection. So when we are performing the Azadari of Abdullah Hussain alayhi salam, it must have that Zainabi element within it for us to reach that level of perfection. This is for the Azadari. And one last note on the Shahadat of the Prophet and Imam Hassan Mujtaba, and that is, as we said, in kuntum tuhibbuna Allah fattabi'uni yuhibbukumullah. As there are levels and levels in regards to the ideology of Islam, in regards to the understanding of Islam, in regards to Tawheed, you know, if you look at just to give you a definition, as there is a Tawheed Azhar, as there is a Tawheed Sifat, as there is a Tawheed Af'al. And what is that? Obviously it requires a greater deal of discussion and contemplation and knowledge to really understand. So it's one Tawheed, which is very simple, one God. But it has ila masha'Allah darajat, ila masha'Allah levels to understand and comprehend what Tawheed is. So this is in regards to that ideology itself. This is in regards to that intellectual capacity of a human being that could reach in regards to understand Tawheed, in regards to know what Tawheed is. And on the same token, as Islam is a deen which is al-yawma akmaltu lakum dinakum, it's a religion that has been perfected, it not only have the element of intellectuality, but it also have the element of action. So as there are ila masha'Allah levels infinite levels of Tawheed to understand. On the same token, there are infinite levels of that very Sunnah of the Prophet to understand. Because the Sunnah of the Prophet is nothing but the reflection of that very Tawheed in action. That's the Sunnah of the Prophet. That is the reflection of Tawheed in the action of the Prophet. That is Tawheed, which is the action of the Prophet. So as there are infinite level of Tawheed, of oneness of God, at the same time there are infinite levels of the very Sunnah of the Prophet. But in outwardly speaking, it could be very zahiri. This is the Sunnah Qurbun Nawafil, a person who performs that. And within that, you have infinite levels of that very Nawafil itself. What to recite, what not to recite, when to recite, and the way to recite. So there are darajat in the actions as well. We are just in a state of bewilderment, in a state of astonishment to really comprehend and understand Tawheed intellectually. Obviously, at the same time, there is Tawheed within the action as well of the Prophet. That is also requires a deeper understanding of it, and not only just understanding as it is an action plan, it requires that action plan of ours. So therefore, the Sunnah of the Prophet, the actions of the Prophet, which is in Kuntum Tuhibbuna Allah fattabi'uni yuhibbukumullah, it has that and those levels that is required first by acting upon it. Comprehension, which also comes about because comprehension could go in that outer circle, could go in that outer circle of intellectuality, could go in that outer circle of understanding. But in regards to the action, which really requires that act upon the Sunnah, upon the actions of the Prophet. Yes, mawaddata fil qurba, loving of the Ahlulbayt, like we said, it's very simple, just as one God. Yes, love Ahlulbayt. It's just like that, just like simple as there is one God. But this love Ahlulbayt really requires that deeper understanding. And not only understanding, like we said, it's an outer circle, but that action plan, that actions of loving Ahlulbayt. What is really the action of loving Ahlulbayt? And when we look at the action of loving Ahlulbayt, it beautifully ties once again with what we started, which is the Azadari and becoming Zainab itself. So when we are performing Azadari, it is nothing but that we are becoming Zainab. So it's that action plan. Maulana Rizvisab to inspire us with his speech, with his talk on the Prophet as we are commemorating the Shahadat of the Prophet and our second Imam, with a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Maulana have traveled from all the way from Manchester while looking at the weather. MashaAllah, may Allah bless him, increasing his tawfiqat, and may Allah accept all of his majalis as adari in this month and also in the future months, inshallah. With a loud salawat ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Narae Takbir. Allahu Akbar. Narae Risalat. Ya Rasulullah. Narae Hadari. Ya Ali.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
Rasyatu selamat ulama yahfazan salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad.
A'udzu billahi minasy syaithanir rajim. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Alhamdulillahilladzi la yablughu midhatahul qa'ilun wa la yuhsi na'ma'ahul 'adun wa la yu'ti haqqahul मुत्ताहिदून अल्लज़ी ला युद्रिकुहु बुअदुल हिमम वला यनालुहु गौसुल फितन अल्लज़ी लैसा लिसिफ़तिही हद्दुम महदूद वला नअतुम मौजूद वला वक़्तुम मअदूद वला अजलुम ममदूद फतरल हलाइका बिक़ुदरतिही वस्सलातु वस्सलामु अला अव्वलिल अदद अर्रसूलिल मुसद्ददल मुस्तफ़ल अमजद अल महमूदिल अहमद सय्यदिना व मौलाना अबिल क़ासिम मुहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि व आलिहि तय्यबीन अत्ताहिरीन अल-मासूमीन अल्लज़ीना ला युक़ासु बिहिम मिन ख़ल्क़ि अहद अम्मा बअदु फ़क़द क़ाल अल्लाहु तआला व तबारक फ़ी कलामिहिल मजीद व फ़ुरक़ानिहिल हमीद व क़ौलुहुल हक़ बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम वल्लाहु अख़रजकुम मिन बतूनि उम्महातिकुम ला तअलमूना शय्या सलावात